After completing Kingdom Hearts 2 at level 1, the time has come to take things all the way back to the beginning, even before Kingdom Hearts 1 ever happened. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. One of the most discussed and arguably the most controversial entry of the entire Kingdom Hearts series for many reasons. However, this game is not only one of my personal favorites of the entire series, easily within the top 3, but is also a game that when coming back to it feels like coming home in a sense. Much like every game prior to this one, I've never done a level 1 run of Birth by Sleep, but that changes now. And you already know what we're on. We're playing this on critical mode, the hardest mode of the entire game. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you guys how I beat Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix at level 1. For those of you that haven't watched my other level 1 run videos and are thus unaware of what a level 1 run is, to briefly explain a level 1 run for those that do, in Kingdom Hearts there's an ability called EXP 0. Equip it and you don't gain any EXP for defeating enemies, meaning that you cannot level up, making the game a lot harder than it would be during a casual playthrough. Now the way that Birth by Sleep works as a whole is a lot different compared to your typical number title, among many other things that I will get into soon enough. For starters, the most notable difference is that in Birth by Sleep, you can choose between 3 playable characters: Terra, Ventus, and my personal favorite character of the game, Aqua, and together, their stories comprise one complete story. You can play any of their stories in any order you choose, but I literally don't know a single person who doesn't go in the order the game suggests. Like, if you save Terra for last instead of Aqua for some reason, you're weird. Like, what are we talking about? But I, of course, am a normal person, so I picked Terra first since he's without question the hardest character to utilize in Birth by Sleep for reasons I will also get into soon enough as well. And I honestly just really want to get him out the way so I can play with Ventus and Aqua faster, but for now, it's time for the Mark of Mastery exam, and before I say anything else, is Ericus fucking stupid? Like, why did he purposefully invite Xehanort, the guy that literally gave him his scars in the first place among various other things, then act surprised when the exam briefly goes off the rails? Like, I get he's your friend, but like, dude, are you serious? Ericus's intelligence aside, we get rid of these orbs and learn our first command style of the game, Critical Impact. More on that later. With this, Aqua passes the exam while Terra fails. I sure hope this doesn't backfire later. And as Ericus informs us of a new threat in the Unversed as well as Xehanort's disappearance, we take our leave from the land of departure into the lanes between. Here, we have 3 worlds we need to complete: Enchanted Dominion, Castle of Dreams, and the Dwarf Woodlands. In order to unlock the latter 2 though, we need to complete Terra's visit to the Enchanted Dominion first. So of course, we equip EXP 0 and touch down in the Enchanted Dominion proper. Now I can actually explain more in depth about the gameplay of Birth by Sleep, but for those that don't really care for this long-winded explanation, skip to this point in the video. But for those that do care, the way that this game works is that as opposed to having a command menu where you can choose to either attack, cast magic, use items, etc., you instead have the command deck where you can place a series of commands of your choosing into a deck. And while you yourself cannot level up with EXP 0 equipped, your commands are the exception to this. Leveling these commands up not only makes them stronger, but also allows you to take some of these commands and fuse them together to make better ones. This is how you inevitably get some of the best commands in the game, but this is also how you receive abilities as well, since by using specific synthesis crystals found by defeating enemies or traversing the worlds during the melding process, you're able to learn things you wouldn't normally be able to learn during, say, Kingdom Hearts 1 or Kingdom Hearts 2, such as Once More or Second Chance, for example. The tier of ability, of course, depends on the tier of command you're melding, and since it's the early game, the commands at my disposal don't really become that good until about the mid game where I can grind for them. Apart from this, you also have command styles, where by performing a series of commands, you enter into a power-up of sorts reflecting the commands that you used. In this case, Terra has Critical Impact, for example, reflecting the physical commands he has at his disposal. I'm not going to mention every command style I receive throughout the game. I'll only mention the ones I feel are important to each character as we go along, since some command styles don't really have that many uses in a level 1 run. Each character shares a majority of command styles in the game, but they also learn command styles throughout their stories that are specific to themselves. Terra, Ventus, and Aqua also have their own unique commands that they can create. In addition to the fact that Terra, Ventus, and Aqua also have their own unique finishers which they can acquire more of as the story progresses and you fulfill certain requirements. Finally, we have Dimension Links, or D-Links, where we're able to connect with our friends and use some of the commands representative of them instead of our own. You can also level them up as well and acquire abilities centric to that D-Link. D-Links can be pretty 50-50 at times. Some of the ones you can acquire can either be really good or completely garbage with really no in-between. Honestly, D-Links are only really useful during the early game of Birth by Sleep with some exceptions. As I say this though, the one universally good thing about D-Links is that by using a D-Link you get an automatic full heal. So if things ever start to hit the fan, you can pop a quick D-Link and revert from it to turn the tides of battle back in your favor. Last couple things I want to say before we move on is that Birth by Sleep's EXP0 functions a lot like Kingdom Hearts 1's. What I mean by this is that EXP0 in Birth by Sleep has a hidden function to it of sorts, where if you use finishers, your damage actually increases, allowing for some commands in Birth by Sleep to do ridiculous amounts of damage. I'm gonna need this because the regular level 1 damage of Birth by Sleep is like pitiful. Like I'm doing chip damage here, and it doesn't get any better. It doesn't help that Terra is the slowest character in the game either. This is of course why I wanted to get Terra out of the way in the first place, because Terra not only has some of the slowest recovery on most of his moves, but this is of course meant to compensate for the fact that he is primarily a strength-focused character. At least that's what Birth by Sleep likes to make you think, until you play as Ventus and Aqua and realize that Ventus and Aqua are leagues ahead of Terra in every statistical category, but you know, more on that later, I guess. With that long-winded explanation out the way, we can actually continue with the events of Terra's story now, as we encounter Maleficent, who completely manipulates Terra into stealing Princess Aurora's heart for her. Get used to this is actually like a trend in Terra's story. There's not much we can really do about this, unfortunately, and as we try to take our leave from the castle, we have to take down the Wheelmaster Unverse. The best way that I found to deal with the Wheelmaster at level 1 is to make use of Ventus's D-Link, since one of his abilities is Haste, which increases the speed of my attacks. This is really good for this fight since I'm able to do enough hits in succession to completely knock the Wheelmaster down and get good damage through finishers, and I continue on with this until the Wheelmaster is completely dealt with. Not really much to say about this fight at all. With the Enchanted Dominion done, yes, that was a very quick visit, I know, it's the theme of this game actually. Castle of Dreams and Dwarf Woodlands open up to us for real this time, so I decided to visit the Castle of Dreams first, where one of the saddest songs in the entire game plays because Cinderella's dress got ruined. Normally this wouldn't be a problem if we didn't have to immediately fight the Unverse while the song still played. Pretty weird, I know. But anyway, Cinderella's fairy godmother appears to help Cinderella out, and we make for the castle ourselves, where we have to defend her from Unverse as she tries to reach the ballroom. This was unironically very tough for me because damn, Cinderella was getting pieced up, I'm not gonna lie to you. My defense was getting exposed out there. Doesn't help that Terra can't move, but also that the game decided it was a great idea to spawn 3 Bruiser Unversed all at once. Eventually though, Cinderella makes it to the ballroom, relatively unharmed. Don't look at that meter in the top left, pay that no mind. Completing this section nets us Counter Hammer for Terra, a counter move that applies to Terra's block where he can retaliate if he successfully guards an attack. Using Counter Hammer is also good for the invincibility frames as well. With that out the way, we head towards the antechamber after sighting some Unverse, and it's at this point that I'm actually able to craft R Solemn for Terra. R Solemn is one of Terra's best commands. Normally you wouldn't get this until much later in Terra's story, but if you meld Thunder and Strike Ray together, you actually have a chance for the resulting command to turn into R Solemn, which does happen for me. Well, you know, after various failed building attempts prior to this, but we don't gotta talk about that. But now that we actually have our Solemn, we make really quick work of the Symphony Master, and after an encounter with Aqua, God, I miss you so much, we take our leave from the Castle of Dreams and make for the Dwarf Woodlands, where after defending Snow White from the Unverse, we get Air Slide in the process and do the same thing to the Magic Mirror like we did to the Symphony Master and get completely carried by our Solemn. And after a quick visit to the Mysterious Tower as well as the Badlands, where we finally make contact with Master Xehanort as he informs us of Vanitas, a boy in a mask who acts as the source of the Unverse, as well as the manifestation of darkness in Ventus' heart. Well, more or less, until Remind told us he's kinda not that, and that he's more of an amalgamation of other things, but like, what can you really do, right? Gaslighting aside, we make our way towards Radiant Garden, fend off some Unversed, and team up with Aqua and Ventus at the reactor to take down the Trinity armor. Now I ain't gonna lie, I was kinda surprised by how many times I was getting caught lacking by the Trinity armor. I usually never die at this fight. Doesn't help that by this point, if I ever get hit by this big laser the Trinity armor does, I kinda just get one shot, and the Trinity armor splitting apart can also cause various problems, so there's that too. But besides that, I'm still carried by our solo. Like, what, did you expect anything different? Our solo go bird, baby, let's go. We beat the Trinity armor, Ventus gives us some lifetime passes to Disney Town, and after a quick falling out with Van and Aqua, we leave the reactor. And after an encounter with this man Bragg, who says he's holding Master Xehanort captive, we head towards the Purification Factory to take him down. If you haven't figured it out by now, Bragg is the original form of Xigbar, so of course this fight is centered around him using his arrow guns. Like his fight in Kingdom Hearts 2, he starts things off by shooting at you from a vantage point. There's no reaction command here to bounce the bullet back at his scope, but all you really need to do for him to come back down is to just block his shots back at him. Honestly speaking, this is basically just how the fight as a whole goes. Due to Terra's mobility, or lack thereof I suppose, it's actually a lot safer to simply just bounce his bullets back at him by blocking and using our Solemn to get good damage on him whenever he tries to charge this big laser at you, which you cannot block. Believe me, I tried. It didn't go so well. But besides that, this fight is pretty simple, but can definitely trick you up if you think you can fight him on his level as Terra of all characters. Also, by beating Bragg, every slot in our deck is completely unlocked by this point as well. After some more gaslighting by Master Xehanort, surely this will not result in anything bad happening to Terra or anybody else connected to him, we take our leave from Radiant Garden. Now with this visit done, 3 new worlds become available: Disney Town, Olympus Coliseum, and Deep Space, with Neverland becoming unlocked later on after all 3 visits. However, before I continue on with the story, we can actually grind up some really good commands and abilities by this point. See, by completing Radiant Garden, by heading back to the reactor, you can fight a series of waves of Unversed, which nets you really good EXP and is without question the best spot to grind in the entire game. Even though I'm of course not gaining any actual levels, this is still an amazing spot to grind up commands and prepare for whatever the game has to throw at me later. So I take this time to get Renewal Block, a guard that restores HP and is essential for any run of Birth by Sleep, as well as multiple Kiragas, Second Chance, Once More, multiple boosts to different elements of magic, along with some HP boosts, etc. And by this point, I'm effectively ready to handle the rest of the game as a whole. I'm gonna need it too, believe you me, because the difficulty curve by this point becomes pretty steep, let me tell you. Now that I'm officially prepared for the rest of the game though, we head on over to Disney Town, where we can actually pick up Aerial Slam for Terra by heading underground. And after proving to the world that I am Speed, Terra contemplates over the darkness in his heart smack dab in the middle of a cartoon town surrounded by absolutely no one save for Minnie and Chip and Dale. It's funny because this scene is good for Terra's character development, but out of context and in a vacuum, this scene is really funny to look at. You could say that about a lot of Kingdom Hearts scenes actually. God damn. Jokes aside, after completing Disney Town, our journey takes us to the Olympus Coliseum, the world that no matter what will continue to persist and be brought back in almost every Kingdom Hearts game, no matter what the situation is. And after defeating some Unversed, Herc tells us that it might be a good idea to enter the games, and so we decide to do so, as Terra once again gets gaslit, only this time it's by Hades. And as we enter the games and make it to the final round, we have to fight against Zack! Zack! Sorry, I just really love Zack. But yeah, Zack isn't too hard, save for the fact that he actually pulls out of phase 2 as it's revealed that Hades is controlling him. And this phase is definitely harder than the first one, mainly because of this attack right here. Zack got hands, with all due respect. Funnily enough, this level 1 run was the first time in my life that I actually learned how to dodge this thing successfully. The timing to dodge it is extremely precise since Terra's dash doesn't have that many invincibility frames. Besides this and the fact that Zack will summon meteors as well, our Solemn helps me to get through this fight just like the phase prior. Our Solemn has been carrying me through this game, if you can tell by now. After freeing Zack from Hades' control, I'm definitely not getting war flashbacks to Crisis Core as we speak. We get some cheers from an audience consisting of 0 people, and we take our leave from Olympus as we're gifted the first genuinely good Keyblade for Terra, the Mark of a Hero. If you've been wondering why I haven't changed my Keyblade until literally right now, yeah, most of the other ones suck, including a good amount of the ones that come after this, save for like 2. But now that we've got that out the way, it's time for the last world in this current set, Deep Space. And it's here in Deep Space that we can actually get high jump for the first time between all 3 characters. So after agreeing to help Dr. Jumbo Jakiba free Stitch, we eventually make it towards the containment pod where we have to deal with Experiment 221. This fight sucks, man. Mainly because of the fact that it takes so long to beat because Experiment 221 just does not stay still at all, and even when he does, the windows that you actually get to attack him feel extremely brief, mainly because of the fact that even if you get close to him at times, he will do this big shockwave move which depletes your health. And once you get him down to a certain HP range, he actually jumps inside of these two guns which shoot at you for a period of time. Normally you would be able to deplete the health of these guns so that he would hop out of them, but because of the fact that I'm at level 1 and once again I'm doing literal chip damage, I kind of just have to weather the storm, and this is kind of the theme for the entire fight as a whole until I get it done. Following this, we embark from deep space, meaning that with all 3 of these visits done, Neverland is now unlocked. And Neverland in this game is actually not just Captain Hook's ship this time, and is instead the real Neverland. It took way too long for the real Neverland to become an actual world, I know. But now that we touched down on Neverland properly, before I say anything else, I want you to listen to this. Sorry, I just really needed to get that one off my chest. But now that we're actually in Neverland, we defend Captain Hook and Smee from some Versed, and decide to help him defend his treasure chest from Peter Pan, believing that this treasure chest contains light, supposedly. We make for Skull Rock, and it's at this point we can actually get another Ars Solum. Instead of heading into Skull Rock through the main entrance, we can actually head up from the side and enter that way without triggering the next cutscene. And from here, just use Air Slide and a sliding dash to get to the other side, and we can pick up our second Ars Solum. And with our next task being to put Peter Pan in his place, supposedly. You know what that means. Let's go. So yeah, after just beating the shit out of Peter Pan, Terra realizes he's been bamboozled, and after freeing Tinkerbell from captivity and defending the Lost Boys from some Versed, we take off from Neverland, and after a quick visit to Destiny Islands where we entrust the future to Riku, we get the ends of the Earth Keyblade in the process. Afterwards, we head back to the Badlands where Master Xehanort informs us that Ventus has chosen to confront Master Ericus, and so we make our way back to the land of departure to defend our friend from harm. With no other choice but to utilize the darkness inside us to protect what we hold most dear, we face off with Master Ericus. Now in this fight, not only do you start off entering Terra's new command style Dark Impulse, which is a very powerful command style change, but every time you enter into a command style at all, you automatically enter into Dark Impulse. Why would they set things up this way? Well, Master Ericus got hands, I ain't gonna lie to you. Ericus has a lot of really strong attacks, including what I can only assume to be his own version of Sonic Blade, this attack where he tries to hit you with some light orbs, but you can easily block them, as well as using Counter Hammer for iframes, as well as this multi-hit combo attack. Ericus can switch up on a dime on how aggressive he wants to be at any given time, meaning you have to adapt to his fighting style on the fly. He also has this move called Mist, where he summons these swords of light that he sends flying towards you. Now you can block this, but the amount that you can actually block depends on how close or far you are from Ericus, because of the fact that Terra does not have an omnidirectional guard, so even when he guards, some things can still clip him regardless. It's weird, I know, Terra is a very poorly designed character. With all this being said, I find my openings when I can using Zansetsuken to get some good combos in on him. And at about 1 or so HP bars left, Ericus will gain access to 2 new moves, one of which being where he summons some more swords of light that spin around him until they transform into beams and rotates them either to the left or the right, though you can just as easily strafe to whatever side they appear to be rotating, nothing too major there. This second move is where he summons more light swords, which then transform into 3 pillars of fire which chase you around the arena. This is the scarier one out of the 2 moves, since he would just spam this move more than the other one when I was fighting him, but besides that, my agenda when fighting Ericus is more or less still the same, as I eventually finish him off, very stylishly might I add, with Zansetsuken. Defeating Ericus rewards me with the Chaos Ripper Keyblade, probably the best Keyblade in Terra's story. And as Xehanort sets the stage for our final battle, we make our way towards the place where all Keyblade wielders leave their mark on fate, the Keyblade Graveyard. Once we make it to our final reprieve, I take this time to sort out my deck and decide on what commands I want to ride with going forward. I eventually decide on this: R Solemn because it's been holding me down for the whole game at this point, so if you're wrong to take it out. Zansetsuken for combo openers, Aerial Slam, Thunder Surge, which, you know, in hindsight, if I was smarter, I would have just stacked my whole deck with Thunder Surge, but I didn't want to abuse it too much since it's one of the best commands of the entire game. I also equipped Dark Firaga, and of course I have 2 Kiragas by my side. By this point, I also ended up filling out most of Terra's finished commands, and I decided that Heal Strike is the play for the next set of battles. Not only because of its own invincibility frames, but also because of the fact that, per its namesake, it heals you. With these final preparations made, we move forward and meet up with Aqua and Ventus as the 3 don their Keyblade armor to square off with both Master Xehanort and Ventus. It's always so crazy to me how this scene was originally the second secret ending in Kingdom Hearts 2, much like how Deep Dive was originally a secret ending in Kingdom Hearts 1. Getting to actually experience these moments in real time with added context is always something I find extremely cool, but with all that aside, we're getting fucked up, god damn! But as Terra flies to the top of this rock structure, we face off with both Ventus and Master Xehanort at the same time. Here, you want to deal with Ventus first since depleting his health triggers the next set of events, but at the same time, Ventus is also weirdly passive during this fight, though he will of course still attack you, while Xehanort provides some timely assistance in the background here and there. Once we finish off Ventus, Xehanort stokes the dark fires within us as we have to fight him proper. Xehanort makes use of a lot of ranged magic attacks, such as firing multiple blizzards at us, calling down lightning strikes, summoning pillars of earth from the ground, and even summoning a wave of keyblades to strike at us. Besides that though, this fight isn't anything too difficult since you can combo him pretty easily. The only thing you need to remember is that if he's knocked up or away, he'll instantly teleport, so just keep that in mind. But besides that, I'm more than up for the challenge thanks to, you guessed it, R Solemn baby! God, I'm so carried. However, this is exactly what Xehanort wanted, as he then body jacks Terra completely, leaving him as nothing but a pile of armor driven solely by hate and a strong will and desire to take back what is ours, as our final battle is with Terra Xehanort. Xehanort is without question the hardest main boss of Terra's story by far, and Xehanort bodyjacking us means that he now has access to many of the moves and commands that Terra had learned throughout the story, including Terra's own Slide, Counter Hammer, Dark Volley, which you can easily guard back at him for good damage and was my main way of damaging him throughout the fight, since I don't nearly do as much damage to him as he does to me. He also has access to R Solemn. Yeah, remember how R Solemn was backpacking me the entire game? Well, now everything that was done to every other enemy in the game is now being done back to me. Though you can easily guard it and use Counter Hammer for semi-frames. That being said, if you get hit and you try to heal and he immediately does it once you do, yeah, you're getting stun locked there, buddy. There isn't really much you can do, so just hope for the best. He even has access to the command Quake, where he summons some rocks from the ground. At times, Terranort will immediately start attacking using Dark Impulse, eventually completing this combo by using Dark Impulse's finisher, but to counter this, I utilize the iframes of Thunder Surge to keep myself safe. At about 2 HP bars depleted, Terranort will not only gain access to Cure, as he will heal himself at times, but also this move where he summons a series of meteors from the ground and hurls them at you. There's honestly no real consistent way to defend this because, like I mentioned, Terra doesn't have an omnidirectional guard, and when you couple that with his slow recovery time, you have to be really lucky with where you position yourself in order to not take any damage from this attack. Though at the same time, I was able to do it during my winning run like once, so I felt good about that to tell you the truth. Besides that, he also gains access to the Ultimate Cannon, where he transforms his Keyblade into, you guessed it, a giant cannon. Once he actually performs Ultimate Cannon, Xehanort will then teleport next to you to try to hit you with some attacks and Dark Impulse. So my advice here would be to just keep dodging until he does it so that you can get a punish in. He'll also just randomly summon one giant meteor on its own as well, but this isn't anything too challenging to deal with. Besides all these new moves, my strategy stays relatively the same, deflecting Dark Volley back into him when he does it, guarding R Solemn and using Thunder Surge on him whenever he tries to use Dark Impulse on me. Honestly speaking, me and Terranort were just boxing for like an hour or something, but eventually I pull through and come out with a W. After finishing him off stylishly with Zansetsuken, you already know I'm willing to sacrifice a good attempt for the content, like come on. And we even spawn in a cool cape as a reward. Why this wasn't a regular part of the design, I don't know. Thankfully, Kingdom Hearts 3 rectified this. Unfortunately, this was all we can do right now, as we can only wait for the day that someone else comes along to accomplish what we could not, hoping to one day make things right. I hope you didn't think this was it though. We still got 2 more characters left to play through. Run it back! Now it's time to play as Ventus. Ventus, and Aqua by extension, have several more upsides to their gameplay as opposed to Terra, more on Aqua later. But both of them are simply outright faster than Terra, and have many more ways to exploit iframes than Terra does. Terra really just got the shortest end of the stick in this game, especially since Ventus receives dodge roll as his primary dodge too, which unlike Terra's slide, not only has invincibility frames for days, but you can effectively spam it as well since the recovery time isn't anywhere near as slow as Terra's was. Ventus also wields his Keyblade backhanded, which doesn't really have any gameplay advantages to it at all. I just think it's really cool that he's the only Keyblade wielder that we know of that does this. But now that we are Ventus, we once again go through the Mark of Mastery exam as we assist Terra and Aqua, and as Ventus is shown to have encountered Ventus first as he tells him to go touch grass outside the land of departure, we embark on our own journey. Same setup as before in terms of the first 3 worlds, only this time Ventus' only available world at this point are the Dwarf Woodlands, where after hunting down each of the 7 dwarves and after defending Snow White from the Unversed, a much easier process than defending Cinderella with Terra. And by this point, we actually already have enough to make Ars Arcanum with Ventus by combining Quick Blitz and Blizzard as the resulting command can turn into Ars. Well, you know, after another several failed attempts at getting the command in the first place, but once again, we really gotta talk about that, pay no mind. And we use Ars to completely decimate this tree Unverse, taking our leave. I'm fairly sure this old lady with an apple means absolutely no harm whatsoever. Now after unlocking the Castle of Dreams and the Enchanted Dominion, I decided to tackle the Castle of Dreams first. And after gathering materials for Cinderella's dress, remember this is before Terra ever shows up, we have to deal with this big cat, but using Terra's fully upgraded D-Link makes this fight a piece of cake since you can just use Sonic Blade as well as the first finish command to just completely stun lock him. I know for a fact by the time you guys see this video, Peter is already banging at my door trying to lock me in the waterboarding chambers, but just so you know, I pledge allegiance to the bag. Afterwards, we touch down in the Enchanted Dominion, where we head on over to Maleficent's castle to free Aurora's heart and get some answers. And after doing so, we have to fight Maleficent proper, who is actually not a pushover at all, if you can believe it. You actually team up with the 3 fairies in this fight who give you some assistance against Maleficent's attack where she tries to put you to sleep, but initiating the command with the fairies allows you to stun Maleficent, opening her up to some good damage with Ars Arcanum. She also calls down lightning strikes, but these are really easy to dodge. The main move of hers that scares me is this move where she like turns into a galaxy or something, but yeah, this move basically just one-shots you at level 1. This attack is the main reason I would say she's not a pushover, since if you aren't on your feet, you can easily get clipped and die. But besides that, you know the rule by this point, Ars Arcanum go verb, baby! I love being backpack, like what do you mean? Following this, we encounter Ventus in the lanes between as he guides us towards the Badlands, hoping to gauge our strength as we hope to settle things early. Before I say anything about how Ventus fights though, just watch this. Yeah, I'm so serious. I'm so serious when I say I was not throwing for content, man. I really did not think I would just get one tap like that. Yo, he fried me. Thankfully, even if you lose the first round, it still advances the story enough because even though Ventus tries to quite literally disintegrate Ventus, Mickey actually appears to help us out as he teams up with us for round 2. Now, if that clip of me dying didn't make it clear at the start, let me be the first to tell you, Ventus got hands. Not only because of his lightning attack, which, as we've established by this point, one-shots me, but also this attack where he casts Firaga does as well. He also hits incredibly hard, at least by early game standards, but the main reason this fight with Ventus was pretty challenging for me was actually because of the rat right next to me. Mickey actually being here hurts me way more than it helps, if you can believe it. My reasoning for this is that at times Mickey will start to glow with light as a command procs to team up with him. But this is way more intrusive if nothing else because it takes away my momentum but also my agency because of the fact that the command is tied to square, which takes priority over guard and dodge roll, which I need. Also, Mickey can attack alongside you, and while it does some pretty good damage, his attacks will trigger Ventus's teleport much faster than if I were on my own. For all my Kingdom Hearts watchers, if you're wondering why I haven't mentioned anything in the way of revenge values throughout this video, well, it's because of the fact that Birth by Sleep doesn't really have them the way that it's designed. Things just kinda happen at times. Ventus is the closest to having a revenge value, which is his teleport, and this is the reason why I don't want Mickey here, because he messes with it. Manipulating his teleport is actually my main strategy for this point by using the first couple hits of Ventus' normal combo, and after some hits, eventually, Ventus will be triggered to teleport with me dodging away from him in response to this. And once he's open, I go back in for some more attacks, using any of my finish commands for invincibility frames from any of his one-hit kill moves, and after some back and forth with him, we eke out a W, learning high jump in the process. As you can tell, things are off to a much better start than they were with Terra. Well, you know, barring getting my ass kicked, but we don't really gotta talk about it, pay that no mind. After this, we get transported to Radiant Garden, where we pick up Counter Rush for Ventus in the Fountain Court, head to the reactor, deal with the Trinity armor again, ours are Kingdom go brr, baby! And we head back to the town square, save this very nice boy from someone versed. I'm sure him and his caretaker won't be committing any crimes at all in the future, and we pick up Reversal from this encounter, a sort of spot dodge Ventus can do by timing square with the moment an enemy attacks. And after a brief yet faithful encounter with both Lee and Isa, God, I love Axel so much, or Lee in this case, whichever you prefer, we obtain the Frolicking Flame Keyblade and depart from Radiant Garden. For about 5 seconds, of course, because much like with Terra, now that Ventus' visit to Radiant Garden is done, we can head back to the reactor and pick up all the high-tier commands and abilities I need going forward. Renewal Block, Curaga, Once More, Second Chance, you already know what we're on by now. Now, Ventus' visit to Disney Town is actually very important. I briefly touched on it during Terra's segment of Birth by Sleep, but in Disney Town, you can actually head underground, and this is of course where you can pick up not only Aerial Slam, but Break Time as well. Even more important though is the fact that once you make it all the way through the underground portion of Disney Town, you actually end up back in the raceway, just completely above ground level. Here, you probably notice a chest all the way at the other side. I didn't mention this part in Terra's story since in his story there's only a sticker at the other side, so it wasn't really worth mentioning, but for Ventus, this pickup is actually very important. To reach the other side, all you really need are 2 sliding dashes, and simply using them is more than enough to completely close the gap. Open the chest and we'll find that what's in it is Super Glide! Yes, sir! That's right, y'all, we get Super Glide this early in Ventus' story with no need to come back to pick it up later. We even pick up Reversal Slash from the raceway as well. And with these pickups, we do a quick rhythm game, They Must Not Know That I Beat Hi-Fi Rush, and complete this visit to Disney Town. Over in the Olympus Coliseum, we deal with some inverts with the help of Herc and Zack, help her train for the games, which actually unlocks all of Ventus' deck slots, then deal with some more of these jellyfish inverts back in the town with the help of Magnet, picking up Air Slide in the process. Not much really happens in Ventus' visit to Olympus Coliseum, save for the fact that I love Zack! Oh. Sorry. But just like with Terra, we pick up the Mark of a Hero Keyblade and head on over to Deep Space. Or at least try to, before we're attacked by the Metamorphosis Unversed. And for some reason we have to fight it using Keyblade glider controls. Why would they do this? I don't know actually. I'm glad they don't do it again though, because these controls are fucking dog. And it took way longer than it should have to not even shave off a full health bar so I could continue. But for my troubles, we're actually rewarded with the Wing Blade command style. I said that I wouldn't really be mentioning that many command styles save for when I felt that they were important, and this is one of them. Wing Blade is so good, and I'd argue it's probably the best command style in all of Birth by Sleep. And for me, it's always the most fun to use. Great combos, amazing for crowd control, does really good damage, even for level 1. This form has no negative to it. Terra really did get the shortest end of the stick in this game because goddamn Wingblade is nuts. But now that we're actually on the ship, we give chase to the Metamorphosis Unversed, eventually catching up to it in the Machinery Bay. And with some help from Stitch and of course Ars Arcane, I'm like, what, did you expect any different? Like, come on, you're this deep in the video and you expected different? Let's be serious. We finish up Deep Space and head on over to Neverland. Here, we decide to team up with Peter Pan in order to put a stop to Captain Hook's antics, heading on over to the Cove in order to deal with Hook properly. Now, dare I say, the Hook, at least for me, was one of the most enjoyable fights in the entirety of Ventus' story. Like, is that weird? Like, the only thing I can really say I don't like about this fight is the fact that you fight Hook on this really small platform. Also, that Hook has a tendency to back up before certain attacks like Reversal Slash can connect, for example, and that some of his attacks feel a bit unreactable, like a lot of moves in Birth by Sleep do, but besides that, this fight was genuinely a lot of fun at level 1, to my surprise. I don't know, I just really love the fact that a lot of this fight was focused on guarding Hook's attacks, doing counter rush, and that the fight feels like a sort of back and forth between Hook and myself. It's weird that it's Hook of all characters, right? But it was just really cool. I also love the fact that the Firestorm command style holds a lot of weight here and makes my newly acquired Fire Surge command really impactful because of the fact that Hook gets stunned when he gets put on fire because he's a cartoon character. There are also times that Hook will get close to falling over the edge of the arena, and if you knock him off, he gets bitten by this alligator, allowing for some free hits. Overall, the fight is very fun, and with all that being said, we beat Hook, get teleported over to the mysterious tower for a quick visit, where we try to ascertain Mickey's whereabouts, head to the Badlands where Xehanort reveals his plans to Ventus about having him and Ventus fight to form the key, or some say Kai, but the meaning is still the same, blade. We confront Ericus, get saved by Terra, end up on Destiny Islands where Ventus appears to tell Ventus that the time has come for the two to merge once more, and after getting the lost memory Keyblade, the best Keyblade Ventus can get at this point, we make our way, once again, to the final world of the game, the Keyblade Graveyard. Once we reach our final reprieve, I take this time to, of course, make my last setup, get things prepared for the next couple of fights. I decide on having Ars Arcanum because, you know, I can't not have it after being carried throughout the whole game, can I? Aerial Slam, 2 Thunder Surges, because I'm definitely going to need them now more than ever before, and 3 Kiragas for safety. By this point, I had also unlocked all of Ventus's finish commands and decided to use his ultimate finish command Stratosphere going forward instead of Heal Strike. You'll see why soon enough. But for now, we push forward and once again face off with Xehanort and Ventus. And just like before, we get pieced up all the same, but before Ventus can land his finishing blow on Aqua, we use the light within us to make one final stand. Now this version of Ventus isn't actually that much different from any of the other prior versions of Ventus, save for the fact that at the start of the fight he rides this wave of Keyblades for a really long time. In real time, I think he does it for like 2 whole minutes. As well as some of his moves gaining new properties, this fight isn't that much different. Now, as for how I actually dealt with this version, remember way back when I said that D-Links were mainly only useful during the early game, with some exceptions? Well, you wanna see something cool? I know you're probably thinking, what just happened? How did you do that much damage? Now you see, I could explain what just happened, but I think it's a lot funnier if I don't, so I won't. So moving on, by defeating Ventus, he reveals his face in a moment that has made anyone who has ever played Birth by Sleep completely confused when they first did, and inside the dive to the heart, Ventus hits Ventus with the sickest burn in all of Kingdom Hearts. Also, I just really want to shout out Haley Joel Osment for his performance as Ventus, especially like his laughs. He plays villain characters almost too well. All of that aside, we face off with Ventus one last time. Well, with Ventus anyway, but this time with the broken Keyblade. Final Ventus is actually pretty tough at level 1, though I would say that this is probably the most fun version of Ventus to fight. For starters, he has this multi-hit series of attacks where he ends the string with a well-telegraphed X-shaped projectile, which you can easily dodge roll through. He also has this move where he leaps into the air and charges at you using the Keyblade about 3 times. Finally, he still has his teleport, but in this version of the fight, it got a considerable buff. When Ventus teleports, he'll do a series of attacks which contain some lingering shockwave hitboxes, but this is honestly a lot easier to deal with here than ever before. My strategy in fighting Ventus is actually relatively unchanged in regards to times before. This fight is actually where Stratosphere comes in really handy. The way this finish combo works is that Ventus leaps into the air off of enemies' heads about 5 times. The reason why this command is really good is that this completely stuns Ventus and stops him from doing whatever move he was currently locked into, and doing the full Stratosphere actually allows me to reset my combo. It also does some pretty good damage as well for what it's worth at level 1. And I do this for about the entire fight going forwards until Ventus ends up with about 1 HP exactly, to which he will leap into the air and dive into the ground, completely destroying the arena as we enter into a D-Link with him, as we have to go head to head with him in a series of clashes in order to fill up the command gauge to its fullest, which we do and use the last word command to finish Ventus off. And as Ventus defeats Ventus, content with his actions, his heart enters into a long sleep, capping off his story completely. And now there was only one left. Run it back! Ah yeah, this is what I've been waiting for. As the last character of Birth by Sleep, and of course, my favorite, Aqua has everything you could ever want. She's fast, just like Ventus. She has an amazing dodge in her own right and cartwheel, arguably the best dodge of the entire game. She not only starts off with several magic commands and a surge move, but best of all, she has an omnidirectional block and barrier. She easily has the best guard between her, Terra, and Ventus, and it's not even close. Couple that with some of her insane commands specific to herself, and you have what is easily the best character in the entire game by far. This only becomes more apparent once we finish the Mark of Mastery exam and are granted the Spellweaver command style. Probably just straight up the best starting command style of the entire game, mainly because of its finisher and just how much damage it can do, even at level 1. We embark from the land of departure on one more journey, only this time as a Keyblade Master who seeks to protect her friends. We equip EXP 0, and while Terra's first world was the Enchanted Dominion, and while Ventus's was the Dwarf Woodlands, Aqua's first world is of course the Castle of Dreams. And immediately upon touching down in the Castle of Dreams, we encounter the Fairy Godmother, help Cinderella, and as we do this, Lady Tremaine and her daughters literally get set on fire by this giant pumpkin on verse. I don't know, this scene's always kind of stuck with me. It's kind of morbid in retrospect, isn't it? But this boss is extremely easy because, of course, we have Spellweaver, and Spellweaver is just amazing. Look at how much damage that does. It doesn't matter which character I am, I will always be carried. Over in the Dwarf Woodlands, we can acquire Raging Storm for Aqua, one of her best and most damaging commands at level 1 by combining Fire Dash and Fyra, with the resulting command having a chance to turn into Raging Storm. After you know how many attempts of trying to get the command fused, but I feel like you should already know this by now. But now that we actually have Raging Storm, we can use this to completely decimate not only the Magic Mirror, but also Dragon Maleficent in the Enchanted Dominion, gaining high jump in the process. As you can tell, we're just speed blitzing through the early game at this point. And after catching sight of Terra in the lanes between, we end up in Radiant Garden, where we head towards the castle and defend a young Kairi from Summon First with the help of Mickey, receiving the Destiny's Embrace Keyblade as a reward. And afterwards, we head on over to the reactor to take down the Trinity armor one final time, using, of course, Raging Storm, baby! Woo! God, I'm so carried. And we get Blade Charge from this fight. You actually get Blade Charge as a command style during Terra's story too, but Aqua gets far more usage out of it. And following this fight with the Trinity armor, we head after Terra, picking up Counter Blast in the Fountain Court. And now we have to fight Ventus again for, let me see here actually. Oh yeah, the 5th time. You know, I actually forgot how many times you actually fight Ventus across all 3 stories, but at the same time, at least this isn't Riku Replica. Also, it helps that this is one of the weaker versions of Ventus as well, and Mickey isn't here to disrupt any of my tactics like with Ventus. To be honest with you, this version of Ventus is kind of a pushover with Aqua, but beating him completely unlocks every slot in my deck, and don't worry, we'll see him again later. Also, if you ever see someone like Ventus just laughing after he gets his ass kicked, run. But with this, Aqua's portion of Radiant Garden is done, meaning it's time to grind one more time for all of the abilities and commands that I'm gonna need going forward. I of course pick up Renewal Barrier, easily the best version of Renewal Block in the entire game, but also Triple Firaga, Triple Blizzaga, Thundaga Shot, and Seeker Mine. I even pick up Firaga Burst as well, which is great for crowd control. All in all, most of these are pretty amazing commands going forward. I'm feeling pretty big about how stacked my Aqua is right now, and that I pretty much just speed ran the entire first 4 worlds of the game. And with this last real grinding session done, we can head on over to Disney Town, beat someone versed at Fruit Ball, and clearly they don't know ball like I do, and after Pete literally gets banished to the void by a group of broomsticks just for trying to rig a contest, we set our sights on the Olympus Coliseum, where Aqua and Zack participate in the games with hopes of facing Terra in the finals. Zack isn't that hard at all, he's really just the first version of Zack from Terra's story, minus a couple of moves. But Hades provides some notable challenge here by calling in some help from the Ice Titan, but any challenge that would have been there is nullified by Raging Storm just completely dealing with the Ice Titan in its entirety. And with regards to Hades, though some of his attacks are pretty scary to get hit by, my commands are just so good by this point that Hades doesn't really stand a chance. Also, shoutouts to Zach for asking Aqua on just one date. Why would they do this to me? Why would they do this to me? But anyway, much like Hades, where his difficulty is completely cut in half by just my command setup, the same goes for Captain Gantu over in Deep Space, where we just completely melt his health bar. Unironically, the hardest part about this visit to Deep Space at level 1 was this force section where I have to defeat the Unversed with Keyblade glider controls. This took way longer than it needed to, man. But even with that, we acquire Air Slide from this visit. Lastly, we can make our way over to Neverland for our third and final visit of the game, where we go on another treasure hunt with Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, ending back up at the gully where we learn Double Flight, and face off with Ventus for the 6th time in the Indian camp. Yes, this is in fact the 6th time you face Ventus across all 3 stories. Weird, I know, it doesn't feel like it when it's across 3 stories and it's not Riku, but here we are. Now, although this version of Ventus is harder than the one we fought in Radiant Garden, he doesn't really have what it takes to measure up to me at this point. Honestly, this version of Ventus is pretty tame compared to what's come before it, and especially with what comes after him. But after beating Ventus and acquiring the Ghost Drive command style, we take a quick visit to Destiny Islands, to which we receive the Stormfall Keyblade, Aqua's best Keyblade, and after one last trip taken to the mysterious tower, it's Aqua's turn to arrive at the Keyblade Graveyard. My final deck going into the preceding fights was as follows: triple Firaga, triple Blizzaga, and Thundaga shot for elemental coverage, and the fact that these are also great keep-away moves. 3 Thunder Surges for iframes, you'll see why, and 2 Curagas. And much like with Terra and Ventus before her, with Aqua I had unlocked all of her finish commands, opting to use Heal Strike, of course. Now, since this is the last recap going into the Keyblade Graveyard fights, first of all, I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you guys that are still watching by this point, and to those that are not subscribed, please feel free to do so. Maybe even leave a like as well. It only takes like 10 seconds to click like 2 buttons. But with all that being said, it's time to push forward for the last set of Keyblade Graveyard fights. As Aqua tries to protect Ventus from harm, her first fight is with Braig. Save for some new moves this time around, Braig isn't that much different from his fight with Terra in Terra's story, save for the fact that in this fight he doesn't have a vantage point to go to. Now you see, I could explain this fight, again, but instead of that, you wanna see me do something cool?
Take this!
Come on!
Nice knowing ya! Kiss yourself goodbye! That's the end of that.
Damn, he's good. But with Braig defeated, we now reach the final boss of Aqua's story. Because while Ventus was fighting Ventus inside of himself, Aqua had to fight for her life against Ventus Ventus. If you want to count it, this would probably be like the 7th time we fought Ventus throughout all of Birth by Sleep. This is probably the hardest version of Ventus out of all the main story bosses. One of those reasons being that, of course, the rat has returned for Aqua's final battle, making this objectively harder simply from him being here at all. All of Ventus's moves are tuned up to the absolute max, and he even has some new ones now. He has this move where he charges at you using the Keyblade, and really, I don't even really know how to properly describe this one. It's like so weird and like impossible to react to. You can even get some pretty funny moments with this, like, what is he doing here? There are also times where Ventus will teleport to the middle of the arena as he eventually jumps into the air and dives into the ground, creating a shockwave, but you can easily cartwheel or thunder surge for invincibility frames. There's also a great way to get some good damage in on Ventus, since while he's charging up, he is effectively immobile for the time being. I think the hardest part of this fight is honestly trying to avoid entering any command styles. My reasoning for this is because of the fact that since a lot of this fight is predicated on using counter blast for invincibility frames against Ventus's attacks, eventually you'll build up enough command style gauge to enter into the Ghost Drive command style. Ghost Drive is really good on its own against mobs, but against bosses like Ventus is where this style's flaws really start to show itself. For starters, when entering Ghost Drive, Aqua gains some new properties to her movement, but these properties are honestly pretty bad because it takes away some of her invincibility frames, meaning that you can do a successful cartwheel and still get hit sometimes. This is honestly why I try to avoid entering any unnecessary command styles, and even when I enter Ghost Drive, I honestly just opt to let the clock run out until I revert to normal form. With all this being said though, we eventually do beat Ventus Vanitas, ending Aqua's story as she builds up the strength to break the Keyblade, and vows to protect her friend for all eternity. Now that we've successfully finished all 3 stories, before we can put a cap on this run for sure, by beating all 3 stories and having 3 saves and collecting all the Xehanort reports along the way, we can actually unlock the final episode of Birth by Sleep. So we load up the final episode, and after one of the greatest plot twists in all of Kingdom Hearts, we're guided towards Radiant Garden for one final showdown against Terra Xehanort. Terra retains all of the same moves that he had during his fight with Terra in Terra's story, save for like 1, and this time he hits extremely hard, as he should, as it's the final episode. But I find this version of the fight a lot easier than Terra's version, simply off of the fact that I'm playing as Aqua this time. My command setup is pretty much the exact same as it was during the Keyblade Graveyard fights, only here I just decided to bring along Secret Mind for safety. I don't really feel like I need to tell you exactly how I fought this boss this time around. I'm pretty sure you can piece together exactly how I did so from everything that I've stated prior thus far. It's only when I beat him that things start to get a little serious.
Not yet. I will guide you to the depths of darkness.
In a moment that has surely made every Kingdom Hearts fan shit themselves, Terra pulls out the Guardian as he initiates Phase 2. In Phase 2, not only does the Guardian have his own unique attacks, but Terra also attacks alongside the Guardian. He only really does one move, which is Ars Solemn, but the way he does it is completely unreactable. Like, he literally does a Tekken wave dash and immediately does Ars Solemn, and this is the thing that caught me off guard and killed me during my first attempt. In regards to the Guardian though, he has about 4 moves, and all of them are reminiscent of moves that he's had prior in Kingdom Hearts 1 and Recon. He has this shockwave move, but you can easily cartwheel through that. He throws these balls, but you can block them and then use Counter Blast for some extra damage and invincibility frames. He has this move where he tries to give Aqua a hug so that he can trap her while Terra goes to attack her. And finally, he has this move called Dark Aerial, which is really just his Aura of Darkness or Dark Shadow move from KH1 and Recon. I don't know why they keep changing the name of this move, but here we are, I guess. This move is easily avoidable simply just by cartwheeling away whenever the shadow comes up from the ground. With all this being said, Terra is actually much easier to damage than in the phase prior because of the fact that in this Guardian form, he only really strafes to the side and makes himself a very easy target whenever he does Dark Aerial. So I exploit this as best as I can to get in good damage, and eventually I beat Terra Xehanort. And as Xehanort tries to condemn Terra to darkness, we do what we feel is right and protect our friend one final time, condemning ourselves to the realm of darkness, forced to wander until someone picks up where we left off and saves us from this never-ending nightmare. Now, though we've completed the final episode of Birth by Sleep, this isn't technically the end, because by completing the final episode, we unlock the Final Mix exclusive episode, the Secret Episode. Now, before we handle the Secret Episode and put a nice little bow on this run, we've got a couple of things that we need to tackle first. Now that we've completed the final episode, we can reload a save with any of our characters. In this case, I choose Aqua, and we actually unlock a new area in the Keyblade Graveyard, the Badlands. And in the Badlands, we can access this very familiar looking marker. Touch it, and what we'll find here is Vanitas' Lingering Spirit. This is the last time that we have to fight any version of Vanitas in Birth by Sleep. Now, as a secret boss, Vanitas' Lingering Spirit has some new moves, such as this move where he encases himself in a barrier and shadow versions of himself attack you. But with Aqua, you can easily just spam cartwheel and get away scot-free. He also has this move where he turns the screen dark and places a series of crystals, I think, around you, but just like before, you can just cartwheel to get away from them. In addition, any of the moves that Ventus had before have been completely overtuned as they now deal much more damage and are much faster. Don't let his 1 health bar fool you. Ventus' Remnant hits extremely hard, and in the case that you do get hit, instead of bringing your normal Kiragas, you want to bring potions instead. The reason for this is that if you heal normally using Cure, then Ventus will heal using Cure himself, but potions are the exception to this. As for the actual strategy when it comes to beating him, you want to just bring a bunch of mines. The reason for this is that the mine commands are some of the strongest commands of the entire game, and because of the fact that Ventus is extremely aggressive with his attacks, he essentially runs into the mines themselves, rinse and repeat, and after a little while, he essentially ends himself, making this fight extremely easy, at least with Aqua. Now that we've defeated Ventus' Remnant, there's one last thing we need to take care of before we can do the secret episode. Now that we've defeated Ventus' Remnant, we can head on over to the Land of Departure, and you'll notice that the level has increased to 13. And because the level has increased to 13, this is a signal that he is here. Ladies and gentlemen, witness the worst boss in Kingdom Hearts. Never, ever in my life have I seen a boss that is a truly genuine tragedy like the mysterious figure is. To this day, there is not a single boss that I have ever faced that is this overtuned. Like, the amount of things that the mysterious figure actually has is so plentiful, it makes me want to tear my hair out thinking about it. Let's actually go over them now, because he can summon clones, use Tornado, he has Doom, Raging Storm, he can turn invisible in the second phase, he can use Mega Flare and Meteor. These aren't even the only moves that he has. I'm just listing the worst offenders. Couple that with the fact that none of the patterns with which he does these moves have any rhyme or reason to them, and this is just objectively the worst boss fight ever designed within Kingdom Hearts, and it's not even close. Now, if you're wondering why it sounds like I'm kind of upset, there are a multitude of reasons. One, I ended up having to fight the mysterious figure for essentially 5 straight hours, and what was supposed to be maybe a 2 to 3 hour recording ended up being a 6 hour recording in real time. The sad part is that this is the experience I had with Aqua, who is the character who's supposed to have the least bit amount of trouble. You know, I wanted to actually do this with Terra, then I ended up fighting the mysterious figure, and then I realized, yeah, I'm good with just doing Aqua for this vid, man, because I don't want to stress myself out any more than I need to. Sorry for the little rant dash tangent, I just really needed to get my feelings about this fight off of my chest, because everything that I went through, I just hope that y'all can get at least a little piece of it. Now, as for how you actually fight the mysterious figure, pretty much you just want to load your entire deck up with Thunder Surges. Anything about honor or whatnot, yeah, that's just out the window for this fight. You want to abuse the hell out of Thunder Surge. Now, if you want, you can try to use the Peter Pan D-Link strat on the mysterious figure, but killing him this way is in fact the rarest way to kill him in Birth by Sleep, and even when I got damn near, I think, the best setup that I could have gotten, I ended up crashing my game because he blocked it. So unfortunately, I was just completely locked into doing Thunder Surge for the entire fight. Now, as to how to actually exploit the mysterious figure, usually in all of my prior runs of Birth by Sleep, whenever I would fight the mysterious figure, I would always end up exploiting this move where he leaps into the air to do an X-shaped projectile. But I don't know if it's like a glitch in the PS5 version, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but for some reason, he doesn't do it here. He never did it a single time unless he summoned his clones. I don't know why. I literally don't know why. I don't have a plausible explanation as to why this was a thing. So what I actually ended up doing was that I was forced to take way more risks than I would have liked, and I had to sort of use Thunder Surge when I could, whenever he did Tornado, whenever he attacked, this, that, and the third. It was just a really stressful experience. Also, because of the fact that the mysterious figure never did the X-shaped projectile move normally, he would actually spam certain moves a lot more than he had ever done before. Like Tornado and Doom, for example. I think one run, he spammed Doom like 15 straight times. It was madness. I don't think I've ever been killed more by Doom in a single sitting than I ever have been here. But yeah, man, like I said before, there is no rhyme or reason, no common sense to the mysterious figure's design philosophy or AI. I just had to thug it out through the trenches to get this W. Now, of course, there are actually 2 more secret bosses that we could do that are exclusive to the Final Mix version of Birth by Sleep, in the Armor of the Master and No Heart. But by this point, I didn't feel like subjecting myself to 10 hours of command board grinding, so screw that, we're going to the secret episode now. The secret episode of Birth by Sleep follows Aqua as we wander through the realm of darkness with her, getting at least a little piece of her experiences there. During the secret episode, instead of fighting the Unversed like you fought throughout the entire game, you'll of course end up fighting the Heartless instead. For this challenge, the game grants you the Master's Defender Keyblade, which is of course Ericus's Keyblade that Aqua took with her to the Realm of Darkness. This section isn't too long as you'll fight some Heartless, perform some platforming, and eventually make it to where you have to fight a large wave of Heartless by the end of it. All of this culminates in you fighting one final main story boss in Red Eyes. In order to have Red Eyes reveal his true form to you, you need to deal enough damage to him first. The sad part about all this is that for the first time in this run, not counting bosses like a Terra or a Ventus, Raging Storm didn't actually work here. So honestly, I was kind of stun locked as to what to actually do here. I know during the early portions of this run, I said that my damage is basically the equivalent to chip damage, but here it's actually just chip damage. So I looked back, thought about what I could do, researched some strategies, and I found out that Ignite is actually the best command to use here. Ignite is one of those commands in Birth by Sleep where it's not really that useful in a vacuum, save for like one specific niche use, and this is where it gets that use. All this command does is, per its namesake, light your enemy on fire, which shouldn't sound useful, but this is honestly the command that does the most damage to Red Eyes at level 1. I don't really know of any other strategies besides this. So yeah, the true final boss of Birth by Sleep goes down by simply getting lit on fire. Pretty anticlimactic ending, I know, but hey, what can you really do? I love Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep a lot, even through all of its flaws, and it does have a lot of them, believe you me. This is a game that, to me, is one of the most emotionally resonant of the entire series. The relationship between Terra, Aqua, and Ventus, seeing how everyone ends up in a worse place than they were at the start of the game. And seeing how Kingdom Hearts 3 took the seeds that this game planted, how they blossomed in that game, and how these characters reached the conclusions to their arcs, makes coming back to this game all the more impactful as it comes with a new perspective. In a way, you could say that this is one of the many reasons I've chosen to embark on this level 1 series, not just as a way to push myself beyond what I thought was possible for my own skill, but to be able to look back at what once was with the context of what has now happened. Maybe that sounds a little bit corny to some of you guys, and to that, I guess I can apologize, but that's simply the perspective that I now have. But with all of that being said, I can now say that I have beaten Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix at level 1. Thank you guys for watching, and happy holidays.
Sora. Riku!
Your mind's made up?
Yeah.
Sora,
Kairi! It's just, they really need me. I have to go. I am who I am. Because of them.
see you soon.